Hi guys, welcome. And who dat? I'm Joe. And today we are going to do a mock draft for our beloved Bless You Boys in black and gold, the New Orleans Saints. And we're doing this mock draft during the bye week. So nothing is set in stone right now. We don't know if these players are coming out, where they're going to go if they come out, and what draft pick the Saints will even have. But let's do a 7 round mock and see what happens. So right now, if the draft were to happen, the Saints would be picking 10th overall. A lot of Saints fans want the Saints to get a top 10 pick. They think a rebuild requires a top 10 pick. And if you guys follow me on this channel and I do mock drafts, you know I love to trade down and acquire extra picks. So even if I had a top 10 pick, I would still consider trading down. It all depends on who's there. So first, I'm going to pull up the draft picks for the Saints, and that's how they're going to be. We've got one pick in the first round, one pick in the second round, two picks in the third round, two picks in the fourth round. We have a sixth rounder and a seventh rounder. So 8 picks altogether, 6 picks in the top 4 rounds, 4 picks in the top 3 rounds. So the Saints are looking okay. It's a little better than just having your basic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We don't have a 5, but we have 2 3s and 2 4s. So where the Saints are sitting right now, we're able to draft 8 players if we use all these picks. And that would be a pretty good haul for the Saints. Uh, what are our positions of need? Well, everything. If you guys hear any noise in the background, they're cutting the grass. So I apologize for that. But let's pull up the positions of need as far as how I see it. The only one I don't have listed here is quarterback. I don't have kicker, punter, fullback, or long snapper listed either, but quarterback is one of those things. If the right players at the right pick, go ahead and make the pick. If we have a whole new coaching staff next year, maybe quarterback will be a priority. As it stands right now, I don't like the depth in the quarterback draft class this year coming up, so I wouldn't spend a first round pick on any of them. And I'm going to show you my top 32 players here in a second. Let's talk about the positions of need. Defensive line, offensive line. We need playmakers on the offense, so we need running back, wide receiver for sure, tight end. Yeah, we need everything on the offense. On the defense, same thing. Defensive line, we need probably a couple of defensive ends. I would like to see a heck of a lot more production out of the defensive tackles. And we could always use a young linebacker, especially a high draft pick, to come in here and to be a third guy. I don't know if we're going to keep Gay or not. So I assume Davis will be gone in a couple of years. We still have Werner, but we're probably going to need another piece at linebacker. And then the DBs. We need several safeties. We need somebody that's eventually going to take Matthew's place. We need somebody to play alongside with Matthew until he retires. So, and then cornerback. Yeah, we're going into the next year. It seems like we're going into the year with Alante Taylor and Kool-Aid McKinstry. Maybe we're good at starting cornerbacks, but we do need depth. We've got $1 million free agents running around playing backup, or actually starting at nickel, starting at safety. So, yeah, we could definitely use a bunch of DBs. So that's basically how I have it. An edge rusher, defensive end, guard, wide receiver, any DB, safety or cornerback, defensive tackle that could stop the run would be nice. Offensive tackle used to be a very high priority for me. Trevor Penning's playing well now, so I'm not sure if tackle's the highest need now, but you know, you can always upgrade. And I don't like our situation at running back after Alvin Kamara. We've got Kendre Miller who can't stay healthy. And Jamal Williams will probably be gone after his contract's up, maybe after this year. So I don't like the situation at running back. I think we definitely need depth there. And, I'm frustrated with the tight end situation. Everyone keeps expecting Juwan Johnson to be something, and he's something. He's good. He's just not great. So that's your positions of need. I'm going to pull up uh, my favorite players in the draft. As far as I see it right now, I'm going to pull up my top 10, and these are the 10 players that I'll be targeting with our first round pick if I can. Travis Hunter, the cornerback wide receiver out of Colorado, halfback Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. Those are my two favorites. And shortly right after them, cornerback Will Johnson out of Michigan, defensive tackle Mason Graham out of Michigan, the wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan out of Arizona. Your top two offensive linemen in this draft, Kelvin Banks, tackle out of Texas, Will Campbell, tackle out of LSU. My number one rated defensive end is Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. And I'm also going to have to throw in cornerback Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame and defensive tackle Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State. That's my top 10. And if any of these players are there, those are the players I'm going to be focusing on getting. There's a few other players that I like, and if I end up trading down way far into the middle or bottom of the first round, then I would have to probably pass on these top 10 players of mine and go into the next top 10 that I have. But my intention is to get one of these guys in the top 10. The next 10 that I have on my list includes cornerbacks and wide receivers that I have kind of bunched up. Now, these players would be bottom half of the first round consideration. And if any of these 10 players are there in the second round, I have a first round grade on these guys, so they would be a priority in the second round. And that would include Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State, my favorite tight end in the bunch. Then we've got three cornerbacks that I kind of have packed together. Jahdae Barron out of Texas, Shavon Revel Jr. out of East Carolina, and Denzel Burke out of Ohio State. I think these three players are worthy of a late first round pick. I think they have the ability to start at cornerback in the league, so I have them high on my list. And then these three wide receivers, they don't have the size that I'm looking for, but they have the ability. And that would be Isaiah Bond out of Texas, Luther Burden Jr. out of Missouri, and Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. And then rounding out my second list of top tens, Jalen Walker, the linebacker edge rusher out of Georgia, Ariante Isery out of Minnesota, an offensive tackle, and the offensive guard Tyler Booker out of Alabama. I don't plan on trading down too far if I do trade down, but these guys would be my priorities in the second round if any of them are still available. And then I'll show you one more list to round out my top 32, which includes offensive tackle Josh Simmons and offensive guard Jonah Savanea, Arizona. And those three defensive tackles right there, Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, Kenneth Grant out of Michigan, Shemar Stewart out of Texas A&M. Those would be the defensive tackles I have really high on my list if I'm not able to get Tyleik Williams or Mason Graham. Those are the defensive tackles I'll be targeting. Malachi Starks is the best safety in the class, and I would probably have to consider him, especially if he's there in the second round. And then I'll round out this list with Emory Jones Jr. and Cameron Williams, a tackle, Donovan Jackson, the guard out of Ohio State, the tight end Colston Loveland, who's a consensus number one tight end, but I'm really high on Tyler Warren. And then the two quarterbacks, Cam Ward and Shadir Sanders. Those players will be drafted probably in the top five. I would not consider them in the first round unless I could get them way late, and I would certainly grab one of them if they're there in the second round. So that's the way I'm looking at this class right now. So let's get the draft started and we'll see what happens. We're picking at 10th. And when the Saints draft pick comes up at pick 10, Travis Hunter's been selected. Ashton Genty's been selected. Nick Scorton has been selected. But I still have a massive amount of players that I'm in love with sitting here at pick 10. We got T Mac at wide receiver sitting there. We got Mason Graham sitting there. We got cornerback Will Johnson still sitting there. And both offensive tackles, Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks. You noticed in my top 32, I didn't mention the top two edge rushers in this class, Abdul Carter out of Penn State, James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. I'm not fond of really small defensive ends. I know a lot of Saints fans want to change the prototype, and those players have ability. I would draft either one of those guys in the second round if they were available. Chances are they won't be. In this draft, both of those edge rushers, Abdul Carter and James Pierce Jr., have been selected by the time pick 10 comes up. So they're not there on my list, and they weren't available even if they were on my list. So now I'm sitting here at pick 10, and I like McMillan at wide receiver. I love Graham at defensive tackle. I love Will Johnson at cornerback. If I were to take the pick right now, I would draft cornerback Will Johnson out of Michigan. And then I would be picking one player in the second round. The Saints have a lot of holes that need to be filled. We have a lot of depth issues on the roster, and we could use as many really good players in the first three rounds as we can get. The last great draft of the Saints was 2017. We had two first round picks, a second round pick, and three third round picks. So we had six picks in the top three rounds. And that was the last really good draft we had. Right now, we've got four picks in the top three rounds. And I get a phone call from the Cincinnati Bengals. They're drafting with pick 11. They literally want to move up one spot. And I'm certain that they want to move up to get Mason Graham. And if I were to make the pick right now, it would be Will Johnson at cornerback, and my next option would be defensive tackle Mason Graham out of Michigan. So, and then T Mac would be the third on my list. So that's how I have them organized in my head right now. To move down one spot with the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm figuring I'm going to miss out on Mason Graham, but I can still get cornerback Will Johnson, and they want to move up one spot. So Cincinnati is offering me this insane trade. They want to give me their second round pick, their third round pick, and a sixth round pick just to move up one spot. And I've shown you my board. There's three players there that I have a top five rating on, and I'm picking at 10. I can move down one spot. I guess they're going to get Mason Graham. So I still have my choice of the cornerback or the wide receiver. Yeah, I'm taking this draft. I'm going to move down one spot and I'm going to pick up an extra second, an extra third, and a sixth. And that's how the trade goes. Cincinnati takes my spot at pick 10. And lo and behold, they don't take Mason Graham. They are actually drafting wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan. Well, that's how that goes. So McMillan's off my board now, but I still have Mason Graham. I still have Will Johnson at cornerback, and I still have both of those offensive tackles. But I've picked up an extra second, an extra third, and an extra six. So now our draft picks look like this with two number twos, three number threes, and two number fours. So now we have six picks in the top three rounds. That's where we were in 2017. Six picks in the top three rounds. This looks pretty good. I should just take this and be happy with it. It's a total of 11 picks, I think 12 picks would be perfect for the Saints because you could at least address a bunch of your needs. But I mean, we have 8 picks. If we could pick up a couple extra picks, that would be nice. So let's make the ends meet here. I've done drafts where I only pick the 8 players and huge gaping holes when the draft is over. I mean, you can only do so much. You might not get that big wide receiver. You might not get a defensive end that can rush the passer. You might not get a defensive tackle that can stop the run. You might not get a tight end, a running back. You need all kinds of stuff. You need a linebacker. You need cornerbacks and safeties. And I don't know, 8 picks is a lot for the Saints, but it's not a lot when you consider all of the positions of need that we have. Well, the only way I'm moving out of this spot and giving up my chance to draft defensive tackle Mason Graham or cornerback Will Johnson, and Will Johnson's still number one on my list at this point. The only way I'm moving back now is if I can get something else really good. And yeah, the Chicago Bears get on the horn with me. They have pick 14, and they are willing to give me their second round pick if I give them a third round pick. And they're willing to give me a fifth round pick, which I don't have, if I'm willing to give them one of my sixes. So this is the way the trade's going to go. Chicago's going to get my 11th overall. I'm going to get the 14th. I'm going to get their second round pick 45. They're going to get my last of my 3 third round picks, pick 87. So now instead of having 3 number 3s, I'm going to have 3 number 2s. And that's a good move for me. I still have my 2 picks in the third round. And then I give them my worst 6th round pick and in exchange for a 5th round pick. And on top of that, they're giving me 2 7s. So I'm picking up 2 extra picks here, but what I'm really doing is moving up from the bottom of the third round to the second round, and I'm moving up from the 6th round to the 5th round, and I'm picking up a couple extra picks. So that is the way this trade goes. My issue is dropping down 3 spots. Like I said, Will Johnson and Mason Graham are my 2 highest rated players. I still really love the 2 offensive linemen that are on the board, Banks and Campbell. So by taking this chance, I'm missing out on my top rated defensive tackle, my top rated cornerback, or one of my top rated offensive linemen. But I go ahead and make the move anyway. And this is how our draft picks are now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 picks. Well, we're good now. I don't need to move down anymore. But have I traded down too far? Will Johnson would be the steal at this point. But yeah, I moved down 3 spots, and you know it. Mason Graham gets drafted, and then Tampa Bay, who's picking at 13, drafts Will Campbell, the cornerback. Or, sorry, Will Johnson, the cornerback, right before I pick. So maybe that was a move I shouldn't have made. I miss out on the defensive tackle and the cornerback. Well, there's some depth here at cornerback. There's 5 cornerbacks in this class that I would consider talented enough to be a starter in the league at the next level. And like I said, we have Taylor and Kool-Aid right now as our starters. Do we need a number 1 cornerback? No, but this team needs everything. We need the best player available. And I've just passed up Graham and Johnson to make these moves. But I'm going to have to make do with it. This is the way it is now. I like the way that the picks are set up now. Instead of having 4 picks in the top 3 rounds, we now have 6. Instead of having a first rounder, a second rounder, 2 3s and 2 4s, we have a first rounder, 3 second rounders, 2 3s and 2 4s. So this is what I'm going with. I want to address more positions, and I think in the second round we can find ourselves a cornerback, maybe even a defensive tackle. But for whatever's left on the board, I decide with pick 14 in the 2025 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Will Campbell, offensive tackle, LSU. I have this idea that Will Campbell's going to be a starter on this line. Whether he starts at left tackle, we move Fuaga to right tackle, and Penning's our backup tackle, or does Penning learn guard? I don't know. Penning's made some strides at right tackle. Doesn't mean we can't improve there. But I'm also starting to look at Will Campbell with those short arms. A lot of people think he would be best suited at guard. And I think that it's an option. So perhaps Will Campbell starts at left guard for us, and we keep Fuanga and Penning where they're at. Or maybe Campbell works his way into the starting lineup as a tackle. That would mean we would still need a guard. I'm not sure if Penning is capable of being a guard, but either way, I'm viewing Will Campbell as a starting offensive lineman on this team. And my idea right here is he's going to start at left guard. So you guys might not like that. Maybe I should have grabbed the defensive tackle. Maybe I should have grabbed the cornerback. Maybe I should have grabbed the wide receiver at pick 10 when I had the chance. But this is how the draft is going. Might be upset about it, getting an offensive tackle with the first round pick, but you'll be smiling when the second round starts and you have three picks. And when pick 42 comes up, yeah, we're going to have three of the next four picks in the draft. So this is why I made the move. This is why. Because instead of getting one first rounder, which would have been the cornerback Will Johnson, and then one second rounder, I'm looking at the list of players that are still here in the second round. And if I would have got Will Johnson with the first round pick, my second round pick here would have been tight end Tyler Warren out of Penn State. Now that's what your first two rounds would have looked like. Cornerback Will Johnson, tight end Tyler Warren. Well, that's not how it's going to look. Your first round pick is Will Campbell. And now we get our three second round picks. And this is where I think the Saints can really do some damage. With pick 42 in the second round of the 2025 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select cornerback Jahdae Barron out of Texas. He's definitely in my top five cornerbacks. Love that he's still here. This mock draft simulator gave me a C plus for this pick. They're not as high on Jahdae Barron as I am. But yeah, he's the first guy I grab of two in a row because I do want a good cornerback. I do want a starting caliber cornerback. Jahdae Barron's pretty good. He can play slot, he can play box safety, and he's really good uh, chasing the ball down in the air. So I feel like he could play deep safety as well. A lot of people are expecting Barron to make the switch to safety, but he is very good at cornerback. And we have options now. We can start him at cornerback. We could play him at nickel. We could play him as a safety. This is a starting DB in my opinion. Whether he's our nickelback, whether he manages to break into the starting lineup, maybe he is better than Taylor and Taylor ends up back at the nickel. Or maybe Barron can highlight at safety too. But I really like this player a lot. And so I don't feel so bad about missing out on Will Johnson now. I've got a starting guard for us in Campbell, at least. Probably a starting offensive tackle or starting guard. And now we have a starting DB in Jahdae Barron. And with the next pick, I had I had to debate. I'm picking at 43 and I'm picking at 45. I really want Tyler Warren at tight end, but there's a defensive tackle that's in my first round grades that's still there. If I don't take this defensive tackle, at 43, the next defensive tackle on the board is a whole tier down for me. I didn't expect a top tier defensive tackle to still be here. I look at tight end and I love Tyler Warren, but there's also three other players at tight end that I feel like we could use on this team that would fit and work out pretty well. That would be Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green, Mason Taylor out of LSU, and Colston Loveland out of Michigan is still on the board. So, with pick 43 in the second round of the 2025 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select defensive tackle Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. I've drafted Barron before, I've drafted Campbell before, and I've drafted Nolan before. And this is the way I'm going to go. I'm taking a shot by not taking the tight end, the guy I'm really in love with, because I'm playing a numbers game here. I want to grab this defensive tackle. I don't want to miss out on him. If I miss out on Warren, like I said, I still got three tight ends that I think could fit into this offense. So I'm taking that gamble. Grabbing the position of need of defensive tackle with the last player in my top tier, a first round graded player that I'm grabbing in the second round. And then we'll hope that Tyler Warren is still there 2 picks later. And 2 picks later, with pick 45 in the 2025 NFL Draft, he's still there. The New Orleans Saints select tight end Tyler Warren out of Penn State. So there you go. Instead of having 2 picks in the first 2 rounds, I've made a couple of moves, and now we have 4 players in the first 2 rounds. We're going to have a starting offensive lineman in Campbell. We're going to have a starting DB in Jahdae Barron. We're going to have a defensive tackle in Nolan who, is probably going to start. I don't know if we keep Colin Saunders and Nathan Shepard, but I believe Walter Nolan's a better player than Christian Boyd. And I'm hoping Nolan can stop the run better than Bresee because Bresee's struggling with that. So, and then we get a playmaker tight end in Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren to me is an X factor guy. He's going to be able to line up all over the place. He's going to be able to split out wide. He's going to be able to split out in the slot. He's going to be able to play inline tight end. He's going to be able to play running back. I compared Tyler Warren to Taysom Hill a couple of weeks ago as a potential X factor type that can do a lot of what Taysom does. Of course, I don't expect him to play quarterback. So I make this comparison with Warner to or Warren to Taysom Hill, and then the very next game that Penn State plays, Tyler Warren takes a direct snap from center, throws it to his quarterback, and then runs out, and the quarterback throws it back to him. And I'm like, look at this, Tyler Warren throwing a pass, kind of like Taysom Hill. And then a couple of plays later, Tyler Warren takes a direct snap, pretends like he's going to throw like a quarterback, and then tucks and runs. Tucks and runs just like Taysom Hill. And I thought, well, my comparison might have been a little far-fetched before, but after watching those 2 plays of the man actually throwing the ball and lining up at quarterback, I'm thinking Tyler Warren might be more of a Taysom Hill replacement than even I thought. So I'm excited. We're looking at 4 picks in the top 2 rounds now instead of 2. And we got us 4 really good players. I'm going to talk about these guys real quick. Offensive tackle Will Campbell is 6'6", 323 pounds, and he's going to be able to play starting guard for us. That's what I'm hoping. You got DB Jahdae Barron, safety or cornerback. He's 5'11", 200 pounds, so he's a touch on the short side, but like I said, has the ability, can tackle, can play all kinds of positions in the backfield. So in the defensive backfield. So I'm excited about Barron. Walter Nolan at defensive tackle is 6'3", 305 pounds. And tight end Tyler Warren, 6'6", 257 pounds. He is a stud. And yeah, when he's running the ball, he's not the fastest guy, but he is a load to bring down if he's going to run the ball from the backfield. and he's got great hands, an exceptional receiver. So I like it. I like it. Instead of having just one cornerback and a tight end, we have a cornerback, a tight end, an offensive lineman, and a defensive lineman. You see, I want to address the trenches for this team. And if you address the trenches with your first two picks, you miss out on playmakers. You miss out on a chance to get a defensive end or a cornerback if you're just going to go ahead and grab a playmaker. This way we get our hands on more. We need good players. We have two more picks coming up in day two in the third round. Pick 74, pick 75. All right. So as the draft is going and the picks are moving towards me, I've got my eye on five players that I have a really high grade on. And I'm thinking maybe I can package something and move up. I don't want to miss out on all of these players. So I'm trying to make a move up. And Kansas City's willing to wheel and deal with me. They have picked 68 in the third round, and they are willing to let me trade up from 74 to 68, and that's a 6 spot jump. And all I have to give them is one of my seventh round picks. I have three of them. All I got to do is give them basically Mr. Irrelevant, and they're going to let me move up 6 spots. It's wild that Kansas City agreed to do this, but I'm definitely giving them pick 252 overall so I can move up 6 spots. This guarantees that I'm not going to miss out on these five players that I have identified. And so I acquire pick 68. So I still have two third rounders. The only thing I'm missing now is that last seventh round pick. I still have two third rounders, but I move up. And now I can guarantee myself one of those five players. The five players I have targeted right now in mind are two safeties, Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State and Xavier Watts out of uh, Notre Dame. Then I'm also looking at two wide receivers, three actually. Uh, Xavier Restrepo is there, the talented guy from Miami. He doesn't have the size that I'm looking for. I want a big receiver because we don't have enough of them. But Restrepo is such a good player, I have to include him here. But right above him on my list are two wide receivers with the size, and that would be uh, Jaden Higgins, who's 6'4", and Caden Prather. Higgins is out of Iowa State, and Caden Prather is out of Maryland, and he's got really good size too, 6'3", 6'4". So I have three wide receivers I can choose from, two safeties I can choose from, and there's one other guy that's there, Donovan Jackson, the offensive guard out of Ohio State. And although I've drafted Will Campbell and I expect to play him at guard, I have to include Donovan um, on this list for a consideration. He technically is the highest rated player left on the board for me. But, like I said, I already got Campbell, so maybe I take a safety and a wide receiver instead of this top rated player left on my board. So I got all that going on in my head of what to do with this pick 68 that I've moved up for. But five, probably six players that I would consider taking here. Five, definitely. I don't want to be forced to just take Donovan Jackson, but the Las Vegas Raiders want to take that pick from me. I just traded up and got it. Las Vegas is picking at 71. I was at 74. I moved up to 78. They're at 71, and they're willing to give me a fourth round pick, a fifth round pick, a seventh round pick, and a sixth round pick next year. And like I said, I have 5 to 6 players in mind. I moved up 6 spots to guarantee that I would get one of them. Now I have the opportunity to move back three. That means the math is there. One of these guys will definitely still be there. I gave up a late seven, but now I can acquire a fourth, a fifth, and a very high seven plus a six next year. Yeah, I decided to do this. I mean, if I'm going to pull the trigger, the guy that I really wanted at 68 was Kevin Winston Jr., the safety. But I'm going to go ahead and take this. This fourth round pick the Raiders are giving me is going to be my best fourth round pick. I have two of them, but this would be my best one. I have one fifth round pick. This would be my best fifth round pick if I make this trade, and the seventh round pick would be my best seventh round pick. So it's not only a fourth, a fifth, and a seventh. It's the best picks in the round for me if I do this. So yeah, I'm doing this. I'm making this move. And I've broken down who was available on the boards. And now this is the way the draft stands. And I don't make any more trades after this. We're going to end up with 15 players again. And yeah, when pick 71 comes up, lo and behold, safety Kevin Winston Jr. still there. With pick 71, that's who the Saints draft in the third round. Safety Kevin Winston Jr. Yeah, he keeps falling in the third round because he was hurt this season. He's not going to finish the season. But it looks like he's not going to come back. And if he returns to school, he'll probably come out in 2026 as a first round projection. But if he comes out this year, it looks like he's going to slip and fall. Too talented to pass up in the third round. So we've got Jahdae Barron at cornerback slash safety, and now we have Kevin Winston Jr. at safety. Winston Jr. is 6'2", 205 pounds. Very, very excited. And four picks later, yeah, I still have my choice at wide receiver. So I go with my top rated guy there with pick 75 in the third round of the 2025 NFL Draft. The New Orleans Saints select wide receiver Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. Yeah, good move for me. This guy's got size, 6'4", 215 pounds. That's a big boy. But you know what? He can move too. So he's not a slow guy. He's got size and he can operate in the middle of the field because of that size. But he can take the top off of defense too. Jaden Higgins is one of the guys that I mock to the Saints quite a bit because I think we're looking for a guy with speed and size, and we're looking for a playmaker, and he's always available in the third round. And like I said, Caden Prather out of Maryland is another guy that I have uh, right here, somewhere in the third or fourth round. I'm also looking at Pat Bryant out of Illinois. So, yeah, a lot of guys with size that can come in and compete on this team. I'm pretty stoked about this one, though, because Higgins is my top selection. Now, that would conclude day two of the draft, and it looks pretty good to me. 6 picks instead of four. You get your starting offensive lineman in Will Campbell, starting defensive lineman in Walter Nolan, two DBs with Barron and Winston, and you also get two playmakers, a wide receiver with size and speed, and a do-it-all tight end. That would be why I traded down, so I can have this result after 2 days. 6 players, just like 2017, and lots of different positions of need met with high caliber players. All right, so day three starts, and yeah, even though I got a defensive tackle, I still want to get some more bodies on the defensive line. We need an edge rusher, right? We need somebody that can affect the passer. Uh, I also think our defensive end should have size because they're going to take Cameron Jordan's place and we're going to need him to play all three downs. And I don't need 242-pound guy trying to stop the run on first and second down. I want a big boy. And a big boy is available with pick 103 in the fourth round of the 2025 NFL Draft. The New Orleans Saints select defensive end Danny Dennis Sutton out of Penn State. This is my third player from Penn State, and I'm not trying to do this, but they are the three best players, Penn State, if you don't count the quarterback, Drew Allar. Danny Dennis Sutton, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is 6'5", 272 pounds. So he's a touch tall for a defensive end, but he has some pretty good pass rush moves. He could work on it. He can go back to school and learn a little more, come out maybe ranked as an even higher prospect. But I'm taking him here, and I'm excited because that's our second piece on the defensive line, and now we've got somebody else at defensive end besides Carl Granderson and Isaiah Foskey. Because Chase Young's a free agent. Don't know if we're going to resign him. Peyton Turner's a free agent. Don't know if we're going to resign him. So defensive end is a spot when you consider Cameron Jordan retiring as well pretty soon. Defensive end is a spot where we could probably address it a couple of times. All right, so pick 112 in the fourth round comes up. And with pick 112 in the 2025 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select offensive tackle Marcus Mbow out of Purdue. I've selected this player before. He's a really good offensive tackle, but he can play guard too. And I like the option of getting, if I'm going to get a late round guy to try to put him in the mix here, it'd be nice to be able to pick a spot for him. I mean, if Campbell ends up a tackle, we may still need a guy to play guard. Mbow can play guard. If Campbell ends up being our starting left guard, that's my intention. I still want to put the pressure on Trevor Penning at right tackle. So Marcus Mbow would come in and basically take Landon Young's place or Oli Udo's place and be a swing tackle guard type for us. We have one more pick in the fourth round, and with pick 123 in the fourth round of the 2025 NFL Draft, the Saints are very excited to select running back TreVeyon Henderson out of Ohio State. Henderson is still on the board. Judkins got picked before him. Henderson and Judkins are splitting time at Ohio State right now. I think both of them are really good players. And if both of them were the only running back for Ohio State, they'd probably, either one would probably have, way better numbers. But if you watch these players play, they're really good. Ohio State, I'm not sure if you Buckeyes fan agree with how they're operating it or not, but TreVeyon Henderson is the kind of guy with first, second round talent to me. Henderson is 5'10", 208 pounds. So, he's a right around a Kamara size, maybe a touch thicker than Kamara. A good player. I think he'll fit into this offensive scheme pretty good too. I'm sick of Kendre Miller being hurt all the time. I'm sick of Jamal Williams being hurt all the time. We need a second running back. We need to give Alvin Kamara a break. Hopefully, Kendre Miller can avoid injuries and be that solid number two that I'm looking for, but I just don't buy it right now. Maybe we have the rest of the year in reality to see how Kendre Miller holds up. He can stay healthy. He looks like he'd be a great number two. He even looks like the eventual replacement to Kamara. Well, we have Kamara 2 more years, and I'm not sold on Miller, so pick us Henderson. All right. We have 2 picks in the fifth round. With pick 143 in the fifth round of the 2025 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select another Buckeye, cornerback Jordan Hancock I like Hancock. I think he's got the ability to be develop into a good pro. He's 6'1", 195 pounds, and yeah, he and Denzel Burke are your starting cornerbacks in Ohio State, and I like the fact that he's from a big school. He's from one of the DBUs, DB universities, LSU, Ohio State as well. Saints love their DBs from Ohio State. So this works out good for me. I want extra depth at cornerback. I'm sure Taylor and Kool-Aid will be just fine. We draft Jade Barron. Yeah, I want another piece. I want to make sure that we have somebody coming in. So can Jordan Hancock outplay undrafted Shemar Jean Charles or undrafted Rico Payton? That's my that's my expectation, and that's why I'm grabbing him here. And 8 picks later, with pick 151 in the fifth round of the 2025 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Armand Mimbow, offensive lineman out of Missouri. Mimbow is 6'3", 314 pounds. I believe he's playing tackle this year for Missouri, but he has played guard. He looks decent at tackle, but people project him to play guard. But once again, just like Marcus Mbow, uh, we have a guy that is flexible, can play tackle or guard. And so I'm excited about this. We get another piece for the offensive line. That makes 3 offensive linemen now. And I'm sure out of this bunch, we're going to have somebody make the team. Somebody's going to start, and somebody's going to beat out Oliudo, or, if we decide to re-sign Landon Young, who was a seventh round pick, sixth round pick. Well, we've got a fourth round pick in Mbow and now a fifth round pick in Mimbo. Mimbow? Do we have an Mbow and a Mimbow? I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, but Armand out of Missouri, another piece on the offensive line. That makes 3 offensive linemen. Now we're going into the sixth round. We only have one pick in the sixth round with pick 186 in the sixth round of the 2025 NFL Draft. The New Orleans Saints select safety Malachi Moore out of Alabama. He's on the short side, not really, 6 foot. He's 201 pounds. Big program at Alabama. I want some pieces in this DB room. We've got 2 cornerbacks. We've already got a safety. Now we got another safety. Like I said, Tyrann Mathieu is going to retire in a couple of years. Do we re-sign Will Harris? Well, it's possible that we do, and he's not a bad player. He's pretty good, and we'd probably get him for pretty cheap. But yeah, I want some depth here. JT Gray is a good special teamer, but playing safety full time, I don't want that. Jordan Howden, a fifth round pick, is, expected to be a starter, and that's kind of a tall task. We got Kevin Winston Jr. in this draft in the third round, and now we have another safety in Malachi Moore. So, last week we had undrafted Millard Bradford on our team at safety on the active roster. So, yeah, we can use some help in the DB room. I think Malachi Moore is going to work out just fine. We're going to give him a chance. And we're going to wrap this draft up with 3 picks in the seventh round, basically high priority undrafted rookies. But hey, if you get your hands on them, nobody else can take them from you. Now, this pick is wild. I've seen some sites have this guy in the first couple of rounds. So on this site and on a lot of sites, he lasts till the seventh round. So I'm not sure where this guy goes. But with pick 218 in the seventh round of the 2025 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select linebacker Chris Paul Jr. out of Ole Miss. He's 6'1", 235 pounds. And yeah, like I said, I think PFF has him as a second or third round graded guy. But all of the other sites don't have him nearly that high. He's a fifth, sixth, seventh round prospect on most of these sites. Well, he's here in the seventh round, and I decided to grab him. As a matter of fact, uh, there were a couple of linebackers on this particular site who were ranked higher than him that were still on the board. But I know what I'm getting in Chris Paul Jr. I like Ole Miss. I like Chris Paul, and we're rolling with this. All right. Having, by the way, Darren Rizzi as our interim coach right now, if he keeps winning and maintains the head coaching job, and it's his job going into this draft, he's going to focus a lot in the later rounds on special teamers. He's really good at it. Don't know if Chris Paul can play special teams, but this next selection by the Saints certainly can. With pick 226 in the seventh round of the 2025 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select wide receiver Matthew Golden out of Texas. What a stud. Yeah, he probably will be available in the fifth, sixth, or seventh round. He'll probably be available on day 3. He's only 6 foot, 195 pounds. It's not small. He's not big, but he's a playmaker. And Golden is a really good kick returner. So he probably covers kicks too. I think he's a special teams guy, all around for Texas. But what I really like about him when I watch Texas games is he's a third down receiver. He converts third down conversions. I see this guy catch touchdowns on third down in the red zone. And he's a playmaker. I feel like he can make it at wide receiver. But you do cover your bases. I mean, he's got the ability to return kicks and cover kicks. So a beautiful pick for the Saints. I wanted to get a couple of players at wide receiver, and we do. We got a big body in Jaden Higgins, and now we've got a third down playmaking wide receiver who can be featured on special teams. And with the last pick, I'm going to address defensive line again. With pick 243 in the seventh round of the 2025 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Tyler Barron out of Miami, Florida. Tyler Barron is 6'5", 260 pounds. He's another tall guy. I like my defensive ends more at 6'3", 6'4" is that's tall as I like to go, and I went ahead and drafted 2 guys that are 6'5". Barron is 260. He certainly can add a little more weight, but I'm making him a high priority undrafted guy by actually drafting him and putting this piece to our defensive line. And let's cover our bases. I mean, even with 15 picks, I feel like, we barely got everything we needed. And so I got to yell at my cat for 1 second. Sam, Sammy, come here. Riley, what are y'all doing? Come here. My right yet. This is my baby right here. This is my angel. This is my sweet baby boy. They're cutting up. I don't know what they're doing. They're having a good time, I guess. Usually when they act up like that, something's up. Okay, so anyway, let's pull up the big board and take a look at what damage has been done. The Saints trade down from pick 10 to pick 11 and then from pick 11 to pick 14. Instead of having one first rounder and 2 second rounders, or one first rounder and 1 second rounder, I make the move to 14. We have one first rounder and 3 second rounders and still have 2 third rounders. So I'm stoked that we get 6 players in the top 3 rounds and we address all kinds of needs. So let's start. When I do these breakdowns, I like to go through the basic positions of a football team, starting on offense. Quarterback, we didn't address quarterback, but We have Derek Carr. He's playing pretty well right now. And we do have two young guys that we're trying to develop. If the right player would have been there, and I did debate on grabbing a quarterback in the seventh round, but yeah, we're going to ride with Derek Carr for one more year. Personally, what I would do is try to trade one of these young guys, Jake Hayner, maybe to San Francisco or to Denver, get a fifth, sixth, seventh round pick, whatever you can get for him, and go pick up a free agent quarterback, a guy, a veteran with experience. He doesn't have to be great. He just has to have some experience. And I think we tackle quarterback that way. And then whatever happens next year, maybe Spencer Rattler develops. Maybe Derek Carr surprises us and continues to play really good. Or maybe we're horrible next year and we have a high draft pick and we can address quarterback then. At running back, yeah, I grabbed Travion Henderson. I'm not sold on our running back situation right now. Kamara needs all the help he can get. Taysom Hill is probably going to retire in a year or two. So Kendre Miller can't stay healthy. Jamal Williams probably won't be re-signed. So yeah, I grabbed a really good running back with Henderson at running back. At wide receiver, we grabbed two of them, a big boy and Jaden Higgins, who can take the top off too. Now, I kind of compare Jaden Higgins to like MVS because MVS isn't like a typical speed guy. He's got size too. His inconsistent hands, it's probably the reason why we don't see him doing a lot of work in the middle of the field. I mean, with a body like that, 6'3", 6'4", you would think that we could utilize this guy in the middle of the field. So, Sam, come here. Oh, well, hey, Star. Hi, little girl. Star and Sam look a lot alike. Hey, baby girl. Yeah, Jaden Higgins has speed. He's not as fast as MVS, but he's got speed and he can take the top off. But he's also got the big body. So people really like MVS right now. And, he's 30, probably going on 31 before next season starts. So now you have a younger version of MVS. Not as fast, but I, as far as college goes, it's got some pretty good hands. So maybe you're getting an MVS of the future here with better hands. Not as fast, but with better hands. A big wide receiver that we can utilize in the middle of the field. He can be an X guy. He's got the size where he can at least learn to run block pretty good, and he can take the top off. And our second wide receiver, Matthew Golden, who's going to play special teams, but like I said, a little possession guy. I mean, we all dream of that slot receiver like Lance Moore, who you get undrafted and just makes play after play and moves the chains with third downs and catching touchdowns and 2-point conversions in the Super Bowl and stuff like that. Yeah. So Matthew Golden is the pick for me here. Two wide receivers. And then at tight end, I'm so stoked. Tyler Warren. Tight end, yes. Flanker, yes. Running back, yes. Quarterback, well, we'll see. Tyler Warren wasn't used as a running back in the first couple of years of his college days. This was the first year they actually decided to start running him. And I think he's only carried the ball at this point like 16 or 17 times, but he's averaging like almost 10 yards a carry. It's a football player. It's a guy that, especially in this scheme, looks like he can do a lot of damage. So I am stoked about Tyler Warren. I think he's the best playmaker we got in this draft. I think he's an X factor. I think he's going to make a huge difference. He's one of my favorite players in this draft, so pretty stoked about it. And to finish out the offensive line, we got three pieces: Will Campbell and Marcus Mbow and Armand Membo or Membow. Mbow and Membow? I don't know. Sounds kind of neat. Yeah, all three of them can play tackle. Two of them have been proven to play guard. My intention is to slide Will Campbell at left guard. If Trevor Penning wants to keep playing good football, he wants to get better at pass protection, then Yeah, Campbell will be our guard. Worst case scenario, Campbell plays left tackle, and you got uh, Taliesin Fuanga that's going to move to the right side and play right tackle, and then you've got Trevor Penning who can be your main backup tackle. Maybe Penning wants to learn how to play guard. That's worst case scenario. You upgrade at backup tackle from Landon Young and Oliudo to Trevor Penning. And then you still have Marcus Mbow and Armand Membu that can play tackle or guard as well. One of these guys is going to play guard. Yeah, I want to put Will Campbell at left guard and then have these other two young pieces that can be swing guys. So I'm stoked about the offensive additions. On the defensive side, we get three defensive linemen, a first round talent in Walter Nolan, who falls to the second round, and we need some help in the middle. I am not sold on Brian Bresee. As a pass rusher, yes. As an every down defensive tackle, no. So hopefully Walter Nolan can provide some ability against the run. Nolan can get after the quarterback too. He could be a every down defensive tackle. And then a defensive end, we get Danny Dennis Sutton, big boy out of Penn State, and we also grab Tyler Barron, defensive end out of Miami. So we have a few more pieces to put on the edge. And yeah, I'm hoping we can stop the run with this crew. At linebacker, we only got one, Chris Paul Jr. out of Ole Miss with a seventh round pick. We have a lot of good, talented linebackers. Demario Davis is still playing at a high level. Don't know if he's going to retire by next year or not. If he does, we're going to slide Pete Werner over to be the middle linebacker, and then we're going to need an outside piece. We're going to need one more linebacker. Well, we have a guy in Anthony Orji who's progressing well. We've got DeMarco Jackson, who's seen a lot of time at middle linebacker and will. We've got Nefi Sewell, who we may have to keep on IR the rest of the year, but he's shown a lot of ability as a young guy. And we may resign Willie Gay. We may be able to resign him to a pretty cheap deal. Um, Either way, grabbing a piece at linebacker is good for me. It's not high priority in my opinion because we do have so many young talented pieces that with time and time on task could get better. But we cover our bases and grab Chris Paul. There's no way Chris Paul's going to be there in the seventh round. I think he's way too good. But we throw him in the mix, and then at the defensive backs, we needed a lot of help, and we got a lot of help. I drafted four of them, two cornerbacks in Jahdae Barron and Jordan Hancock, and two safeties, Kevin Winston Jr. and Malachi Moore. Yeah, so my issue with only having 8 picks is that what do you do? I mean, if I would have just picked where we're slotted to pick and I wouldn't have made any moves at all, my first round pick 10, would have been cornerback Will Johnson. And then my second round pick would have been Tyler Warren. In the third round, I would have reached for whatever defensive lineman was still there. And there's a guy from Tennessee. It's got a hyphenated name. I'm going to have to look him up because he was there in the third round. Omar Norman Lott out of Tennessee. He was there in the third round. And I would have probably, with my second, third round pick, addressed the defensive line again. I would have gone with somebody like Kyle Kennard out of South Carolina. Or I would have tried to grab whatever offensive lineman was still there. Maybe Tate Ratledge at guard out of Georgia would have still been there in the third round. So yeah, I would that's how the draft would have ended up had I only picked where we were slotted to pick. I'm going to pull that up right now. This is how the draft would have looked if I wouldn't have made any trades at all. So you saw what we got with 15 picks. This is what it would have been if we'd have just picked straight up. Omar Norman Lott out of Tennessee at defensive tackle, Kyle Kennard at defensive end with that second, third round pick. My two fourth round picks, I would have at that point would have had to grab a wide receiver with size. Caden Prather out of Maryland was still there. And Travion Henderson was still there in the third round at running back, and I went ahead and grabbed him in the sixth round because we don't have a fifth round pick. We'd had to wait all the way to the sixth round. And I would have got another piece at DB, Malachi Moore. Well, I don't expect him to start at safety. I don't think he's the heir apparent to Matthew. But when you only have this many pieces, what do? I'm trying to get playmakers. I'm trying to get pieces on the offensive and defensive line. And with the last pick, almost Mr. Irrelevant, I grabbed guard Connor Colby out of Iowa. So that's what happens if you don't move. Will Johnson might be the greatest cornerback the Saints ever got. But yeah, yeah. That's that's what it would have looked like if I'd have just stayed put. And this is what it looks like that I've made the moves. So yeah, I'm not happy with this. This is like one offensive lineman, two defensive linemen. We really need two defensive ends. You're losing Chase Young, you're losing Peyton Turner, and you're going to lose Cameron Jordan. Probably lost him already. So, yeah, I need more than one defensive end. I really need a defensive tackle to come in onto this team and to make a difference. I'm sick of this team not being able to affect the passer up the middle, except with Bercy in obvious passing situations, and nobody in the middle stopping the run. So just grabbing two defensive linemen to me feels bad. This list, we grabbed three. This list, we only have one offensive lineman. This list, we have three. This list, we have one wide receiver. This list, we have two. You still get your running back, you still get your tight end, and you only get two DBs, one cornerback, and then a safety that's probably a bit player at best. In this one, you get two cornerbacks and two safeties, including, cornerback and safety that's going to start. Will Johnson might be the best, but I love Jahdae Barron. There's no doubt about it. And then offensive line, you get one guy in Connor Colby, or in this instance, you get three guys, an offensive tackle and two swing tackle guards. So, yeah, the more the merrier, in my opinion. So, if I would have stayed put, that's what it would have looked like if you guys aren't happy with the trades. But I did the trades, and that was the massive haul for the Saints. All right, this has been a long video, but a lot to talk about as far as the draft goes. I will be doing more mock drafts for our beloved Bless You Boys in Black and Gold, the New Orleans Saints. So you guys stick around, subscribe to Rosenfield 10, like the video, leave your comments. It helps with the algorithm. I'm your friend or your coworker who loves the Saints. Yeah, give your boy some help here. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Who dat?